So we are talking about transfer quarterbacks. Jake Fromm person asked. I mean, it's hard to imagine Jake doing anything but staying if he decides to. But we will see some movement, guys. We will see a lot of it, I think, in the off season.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, right. Jake's going to stay. Is there anybody out there that we can think of that's got somebody, you know, it's a backup that we don't know about who's going to end up transferring, and, you know, that's what this playoff has. It has three backups that are.
There's also Greg Ward Jr. or De'Aaron King. Excuse me, I went back to the previous Houston quarterback. Sorry, De'Aaron King, I think, is going to be a prize on the quote unquote transfer market. Someone to be recruited. I mean, he's a dynamic player. He said he wanted to stay, but you haven't been believing that, Paul. You got any idea where he might be headed? Or
yeah, I've heard some names. He's not staying at Houston.
No,
I've heard one SEC school has been mentioned.
Interesting.
I'd love to see De'Aaron King in the SEC.
Pretty prominent one too, but I'm not going to mention it because I don't want to be sanctioned by the transfer portal.
Right.
Yeah. Right. We can't talk about transfer portals, even if Anyway,
it's the year of the transfer portal.
It is. And that's, Paul, if you had to put the over/under on, like SEC teams who are going to looking for transfer quarterbacks, let's play that game then. Okay. Would you put it at 5 SEC teams that would take a transfer, lower than that?
No, I don't know. I mean, there's no way of knowing.
That's what, I mean, when you have
Arkansas, I'm sure would take one.
Arkansas would take one.
They just lost one.
I can't. I can only think of a few that wouldn't take one, frankly.
Mizzou.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's where we're at.
Alabama would take one.
Yeah.
Well, let me say after they get this commitment from the player from California.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
We can't talk about it for the next 24 hours.
24 hours.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's going to be interesting. I wonder how many backup quarterbacks at their teams now are waiting till after signing day. Do you think that plays a role in it, Paul? After signing day, then these guys go out, or
well, not only after signing day. I mean, we've seen players leave after spring practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can think of one in particular.
Yeah, you lose the job.
Joe Burrow.
That worked
out pretty well.
We will be right back. And we are off and running here on a Tuesday afternoon. Glad you're here. Let's continue with more calls at 855-242-7285. Jordan Rogers has been by. We'll talk to Pat Dooley. The head ball coach will also join us. Let's move along and talk to Big O. Big O 3 times.
Yes.
Go right ahead. Hello.
Hey, second-time caller.
Wonderful.
And watch your show every day. And I'll be honest with you, the best show that I've seen in a long time was Monday when Mr. Larry called you out. What's that guy thinking?
Well, I mean, you got to remember, it's Larry, and he's not thinking.
Yes. Well, I mean, had he seen you on TV? I mean, man up against Goldberg, and also when you take your jacket off and you throw up those massive cannons. And, I mean, that should scare anybody off.
Yeah, it's hard for me to believe that someone would challenge me.
I know, that's what I.
Well, listen, I am not I'm not a guy looking for trouble, but I do have a general rule. If somebody wants to give me a hard time after 25 beers, I'll take my chances.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's maybe first 10 beers I would be nervous, but no, not especially a guy that looks like Larry. I mean,
right.
If I miss him on a couple of shots and he's still standing, I can run.
Absolutely. I'll let you go. Thank you so much. Your show is absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah, listen, I'm not that fast, but I'm faster than him.
You got that right.
I mean, but I can move.
Yeah.
Larry, all I got to do is Larry, want Bud Light? Oh.
Oh yeah, wow.
Yeah, sure. I'll have one. Phil is up next. Hey, Phil.
May I address you as Nature Boy?
I wish you would. I've been waiting my entire life for that.
I think you would probably be next in the line of the great ones.
Well, you would think so. I mean, it's about time people are giving me my due.
And I tell you what, Memphis was always a great wrestling town, wasn't it?
As a kid, we would go to my friends and I would go to Saturday morning wrestling at
Saturday morning. That's pretty impressive.
The TV wrestling. I think we went to we didn't. I think I was able to save up one time to go to Monday night. Wasn't Raw at the time. It was just Monday night. And I think I got into a fight with a 98-year-old grandma who hit me over the head with a folding chair.
Were you counted out, or did they just drag you off?
They just dragged me off and threw me in the drunk tank.
That's kind of the story of your career, dragged off, correct?
Correct.
I don't want to take up too much
I still
of your time
remember all those
because
wrestlers, though. Isn't that
I'm not gonna
weird?
go sports on you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know you've had a colloquy about writing maybe the biography of Louis Grizzard, correct?
Well, someone brought it up the other day, and I'm always looking to make a couple of dollars. And if I can spend 2.5 years researching a book, another year writing it, and then try to sell a couple hundred copies, I'll do it.
The acid test question is: ESPN going to allow you a sabbatical to let you flourish?
In fact, I've heard ESPN is encouraging a sabbatical, a long sabbatical. And you must have been listening to one of my phone calls earlier today.
I want to ask
They called and said,
one...
you're looking a little tired. How would you like to take some time off? I go, oh, that would be great. How long? They said, as long as you would like, but we prefer permanently.
Can you and Nick Saban do it together?
Oh well, I think he'll be here after me. I mean, after all, he's a young 68.
Can I ask you a dead serious question that's bothered me for about 30 years?
Go ahead.
I know you're a wordsmith.
Yes.
I took a lot of Latin in high school, and I consider myself being able to handle the English language very well.
Yes.
What has bothered me, and I hear this over air, not you, of course,
sure,
but on-air personalities, news, weather, sports, doesn't matter. What has happened to the ability of people? I used to think it was a Southern thing, but I believe it's universal. Why can people not use the past participle of the verb to go? You know what I'm talking about?
You lost me at past participle.
Well, let me let me say that.
I mean, if you had said I don't like your gerund use, I would have been concerned. But past participles, man, that's a new one. I mean, I don't mean that's a new one on me. I haven't heard that. When was the last time you heard the word past participle? Go ahead, explain to those of us who are grammatically challenged.
Well, part of the reason that Louis Grizzard got run out of the country was political correctness caught up with him. Here's my deal, and I'll leave you with this. If Margaret Mitchell were alive today and writing her Civil War tome,
she'd be very old.
She would have to entitle it "Went with the Wind." Great talking to you.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Okay. I got it. Should have caught that one earlier. So if Margaret Mitchell were alive today, she'd be still lamenting Sherman burning down Atlanta. I'm not laughing at that. Oh my goodness, poor Atlanta. They've had some rough times. Fox is up next. Hey, Fox.
Hey, Paul, Merry Christmas to y'all.
Merry Christmas, Fox.
I wanted to know, Paul, do you think we ought to fire Coach O now or wait maybe he gets better?
I think we ought to fire him now. After all, what has he done this year?
I'm sorry, Paul. I'm looking at some old notes I've been trying to get in since we lost to Troy. And
that's funny, by the way.
Paul, I must say, like Joe Burrow Saturday night, I was so proud of him on the field and even prouder of him on that speech.
Oh, he was fantastic.
I'm just proud to be, and not to toot our Saints horn, but Drew Brees did pretty good last night.
Drew Brees was, Drew Brees is starting to really be annoying. He's so good.
Well, if you're a Saints fan, it's not annoying.
Now, was Peyton quarterbacking the Colts?
Sir?
Oh, I'm sorry. I have some old notes in front of me.
I'm just hoping LSU can have a good year, and anybody.
Can you imagine the Saints and LSU winning the same year?
Sir?
What if the Saints and LSU won the same year?
Oh, Paul, it's a good day in Louisiana is when they both win, and we've had a great fall. and it would just be fantastic. We're already just so blessed. That would be wonderful. That'd be a merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Well, I hope. Listen, we're in my profession. We're not supposed to cheer, so I'm not cheering for anyone, but I am cheering for LSU.
But, you can't. I just want to say I'm so proud of Joe. Even though he's been a great athlete on the field, I think maybe a better person off.
I think you're right about that. I mean, he is. And I don't act like I know him. I mean, I've been around him a couple of times. I feel like I know his dad pretty well. He's been a guest on the show a few times, and they're just good. They're a good family. They're good people, and you don't need me to say that. All you do is watch a speech the other night.
Right. I think. He's living proof that all Yankees ain't bad. And in fact, I think
he's from. Is he from Southern Ohio or Northern Ohio? Southern Ohio?
He's just Ohio's all I know.
Ohio's not. I mean, Ohio's up there, but it's not like New York or New Jersey or Boston.
He's a great.
Hartford.
I do believe if he is a Yankee, he'll be the most beloved in the history of the state of Louisiana.
Well, for a while, Nick Saban was doing okay. Remember?
Well, I still like Nick. Nick, I give him credit for getting LSU started.
I didn't like that guy from Michigan. What was his name? The coach from Michigan? Lester? Les Miles?
Well.
Whatever happened to Les Miles?
I think
is he? He's coaching basketball, you said? At Kansas?
Hey, Paul, to be a LSU fan when we played Alabama, and back when we lost the championship, not get a first down in the first half was pretty humbling.
It really was. Well, I'll tell you what, Fox, great to have you on. Funny call. Everybody's funny today. Josh Kendall is next. Well, Spurrier was really good. Sean Elliott, Will Muschamp, one game above 500.
I mean, it's the early part of the decade, Paul, that really defines South Carolina, I think. I mean, you were there, you lived it. Before the network launched, when South Carolina was really dominating with Spurrier. What was that?
Well, listen, I mean, they were good. It always felt like they could have been a little better. They made it to one SEC championship game in 2010.
Right. A very good
the team in 2013, I thought, may have been one of their best teams. Lost a critical game. I can't remember who. Maybe Missouri. Maybe they. I can't remember. Tennessee may have been the loss, but I mean, they were in such a great position and they let it get away.
That was in a run of 3 straight 10-win seasons, right? They
11
win seasons. Or 11 win seasons, excuse me. Sorry, Gamecock fans. But, I mean, think about it. Think about this decade. At the start of this decade when they, beat Alabama, went to the SEC title game, and you're thinking, hey, this is going to be we're set up for the next decade. This is going to be great. Now we look at it here at the end of 2019, maybe didn't quite achieve as much as you might have thought.
Look at the Mount Rushmore. I mean, this is a very good Mount Rushmore.
This is a good Mount Rushmore.
SEC, Jadeveon Clowney? Yeah.
Easily.
I mean, one of the best defenders in the SEC this decade. Connor Shaw?
It's pretty good.
He was really good.
I fought to have Steven Garcia on there just for that one game.
I would have fought also, but
Alshon Jeffrey?
Overruled.
Marcus Lattimore? I mean, these were... Deebo Samuel was debated about going on.
Right.
But
Pharaoh Cooper, could have put him on there also, but I think Alshon shines above him.
It's kind of like starting really high up.
Did Stephon Gilmore make it?
He was also thought about. But, I mean, who are you going to take off that list?
It's a pretty competitive one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got one coming up that is not as competitive.
Okay, welcome back. Joined by Josh Kendall, who covers the Gamecocks. That's quite a job. He's with the Athletic, formerly with the State. Josh, good to have you on. We were talking.
For having me, Bob.
It is kind of depressing if you're thinking in the present when we were just talking about the past. Some pretty good players and coaching going on in South Carolina over the last 10 years.
Yeah, we did at the Athletic. We did a best of the decade thing, and what jumped out at me was we did a first team defense and first team offense. Just 22 total players, and 15 of the 22 that I put on our list played before 2015. And not coincidentally, the record for this team is much better prior to 2015 than it is in the second half of the decade. So, South Carolina fans don't feel real good right now. And part of the reason is because they did feel so good to start this decade.
Let's get to a question we've talked about really since the preseason, and that is, how did Will Muschamp survive?
I think that he has a very good relationship with Ray Tanner. I asked Ray Tanner about 30 minutes ago what was his response. What was the response he got to retaining Will Muschamp, and he said overwhelmingly positive from most people. So I don't know if he's just got somebody screening his emails really good, or, I think we both tend to hear the other side of the fan base more, maybe than Vince in that direction. So I think that if you know Ray Tanner and his relationship with Will Muschamp, Ray is a coach, a former coach, and very much operates as a former coach. I talked to him in Destin prior to this season when things were still looking, when folks were still pretty much on board with Will Muschamp, and talked to him about patience. And he acknowledged at the time that he was going to be more patient than most of his fans would like, because that's what he truly believed was the way to a long-term healthy program and teams within that program. And so that's what we've seen. He is going to err on the side of being patient. Add on top of that, he really genuinely likes Will Muschamp. They're cut from the same cloth. And I think he has tied himself very securely to Will Muschamp. And is comfortable doing that because he thinks he's the guy. He sees how hard he works. He understands. I mean, you look at Will. Will checks all the boxes to be a head coach. He's intelligent. He's organized. He's hardworking. He's a good recruiter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Ray believes it's going to work, and he's willing to roll the dice on that.
Let's talk a little about recruiting, because tomorrow is the day, and not only that, there's some pretty good players from South Carolina, one in particular in Columbia that I don't think has announced yet. Just your overall thoughts on, in spite of everything, how is Will Muschamp recruited?
Well, he's recruited about like South Carolina has recruited since 2000. This team has been slotted in that nationally 18 to 24, 18 to 25 group. Now, you would think that might translate into a top 25 program. The problem is 18 to 25 nationally generally rolls in about ninth in the SEC. So you're taking a lot of losses in that time period to teams that are more talented than you are. I think that Will Muschamp has, he is a diligent recruiter. He is a hardworking recruiter. But what he has not been able to do that Steve Spurrier was able to do, and not all of this is in the control of this staff, is get those difference-making guys that caused this team to win all those games from 2010 to 2015. The Jadeveon Clowney's, the Marcus Lattimores, the DJ Swearingers, the Alshon Jeffries. I mean, Melvin Ingram and Connor Shaw don't exactly fit into that mold because they were under-recruited guys who, were developed and had a lot of success. But there was a stretch there when South Carolina produced elite college football players, and South Carolina was in position to get all of them and did. That's not happening right now.
Well, let's look ahead because certainly we know how difficult the schedule was this year. I mean, it's always difficult with Clemson on there. This year wasn't helped by having Alabama. What does next year's schedule look like?
Well, it doesn't get a ton easier when you look at the whole thing. They replace Alabama with LSU. I'm not sure you get any better there.
No, that's tough.
In terms of your Western Division rival. If you're looking for
and then, by the way, the game is only at LSU.
Right. Well, it doesn't matter where they
no,
doesn't matter
sure.
where they play that. But if you're looking for a positive, and South Carolina fans need some positives right now, is that the front half is manageable. The front half, the games that you feel like you've got a puncher's chance in, a fighting chance in, are early in the schedule, which could allow you to get some confidence, which is kind of the exact opposite of what happened to this crew this year. So your out-of-conference schedule is not as tough because you don't have a North Carolina, which is a pretty good Power 5 team. You don't have App State. You've got Eastern. You've got Wofford. You've got Coastal, I believe. Those are your three non-Clemson power or out-of-conference. So you feel better about that. And if things can start out a little better and this group gets some confidence, I think that's what you look for from this schedule. if you're looking for bright sides.
So, yeah, I mean, it's, Coastal, East Carolina, Missouri, then it's at Kentucky, at Florida, Tennessee at home, off A&M, at Vanderbilt. And then the end, Wofford's stuck in the middle there, but you got Georgia at home, at LSU, and at Clemson. So you got three. Yeah, I mean, I see 4 losses right off the top. If anything else goes haywire, I mean, is there a number that he needs to avoid?
I think that's the million-dollar question, and I don't think anybody knows, because if you're Will Muschamp and you win 6 games, you're pointing to a 2-game improvement.
Yeah, that's ridiculous, by the way.
Right, and there's no fan base out there, especially in the SEC, that's going to think 6-6 in year 5 is where you want to be headed. So that's kind of the magic question. When you play out the next 12 months in Columbia, just start with those spring speaking tours when the head coach goes around to all the clubs in state. Those are not going to be a ton of fun for Will Muschamp. He is going to face a prickly crowd, and then the first time they lose one of these winnable games, people are going to get more prickly. So you could have a frustrating and sort of cantankerous 12 months in Columbia if they don't get this thing turned around on the football field in the fall.
Hey, listen, Ray Tanner is a highly regarded and respected AD, and you can understand why he could exert some patience, especially with a new president whose talking tour was quite memorable 5 weeks ago. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, you got LSU, Florida, Clemson. I mean, where do you find wins in that? I mean, where do you find a win at Florida, Georgia, LSU, and Clemson? I mean, I don't see one right there. Do you?
No, you don't. You don't find 8. I mean, I don't think you find 8 or 9 for sure on this schedule. You've got to decide: can you get 7? Can you get yourself to the position where you win the games you can win? Which they did not do
listen,
this
Josh, if you're 7-5 or even 8-4 after 5 years, and your biggest rival is knocking off national championships, I mean, what do you sell your fans on then?
Well, that's your soul-searching moment if you're South Carolina, and you look at yourself in the mirror, and you look at the landscape around you with Georgia and Clemson doing what they're doing, and you decide for yourself, okay, what are we doing here? Are we going to roll the dice? Do we really think that we can make a change and it's going to make a difference and we can start competing with those 2 teams quickly? Or do we put our head down and say we feel comfortable with the guy we've got in charge, and if he's topping out at 8 wins right now, we're going to live with that? And I think that's the kind of questions the people who make the decisions in South Carolina have got to get comfortable with for the next 12 months, because that's where we're going to be at this time next year, having to answer those questions.
Tough questions. I was about to ask you about the bowl game, then I remembered.
Yeah, I got the best bowl game on the slate this year. I'm staying home for Christmas.
What? By the way, recruiting. Let me end on that. What's your sense? I mean, I know you said predictable, but I mean, is there anything that could turn it around at the final minute?
Well, they've got the 5-star/4-star running back out of Maryland/Delaware. The kid lives in Delaware, went to DeMatha. He could be a difference maker. He's a really good player. All signs point to him signing. He's been committed since May. They got a 4-star quarterback out of Myrtle Beach who I think will push Ryan Helinski for the job next year. The kid you mentioned in Columbia, who's the number 2 rated player in the country, Jordan Burch, has had a very quiet recruiting. Georgia, LSU both feel like they're in good shape with him. But he may very well announce tomorrow that he's going to South Carolina. I don't think anybody knows what's so interesting with him, and I wrote about this today, is that he plays at the same school as Jackson Muschamp, and they're big buddies. Jackson Muschamp had an offer from Steve Adazio's staff at Boston College and has other small schools offers. He's not going to come to South Carolina because neither he nor his dad kind of wants to walk through that, but he's going to go somewhere. And he hangs out with Jordan Burch and Alex Huntley, who's another 4-star South Carolina commit, all the time. So how does that relationship work? Does that give the Gamecocks a little edge? I don't know, but it's all very interesting.
It always is. Josh, thank you very much. Great to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
Josh Kendall, almost the same. I mean, all due respect to Josh, we have great respect for Josh. The narrative never seems to change in Columbia. It's always wait till next year. We'll be right back with much, much more.
10 years. I feel like, unfortunately.
Do we put this one to bed now that it's a decade later?
I prefer to, yes.
I mean, it has been their calling card. Like this century, that's been their biggest win, their moment.
Yeah.
I went to that game with a South Carolina graduate and had to go back with him to Alabama.
Probably heard it the whole way.
Didn't really care.
No.
Probably talking about how they're
we had the wildest Monday show we've ever had, because that was the Alabama team that everyone couldn't imagine losing
a game, right?
It's like every Alabama
yeah,
game.
most years. I think this year a little less surprising.
I'm wondering.
I think the excuses were kind of built in this year with all those preseason injuries, right? I mean, if you're the type of person to make those,
because Alabama doesn't have the talent to sustain injuries. Not with 7 or 8 first-round draft choices. We've been talking about South Carolina, so let's keep going. Cat Day, did you hear anything from Josh Kendall that encourages you about the future of Gamecock football?
Well, he left out some of the best news about the Gamecocks today. They have voted to sell alcohol at Williams-Brice Stadium. I'm glad to hear it. Because we will be consuming a lot of it.
Yeah, that's one way to get through it. Will Muschamp, good for beer sales.
Yeah, but it ain't good for the fans. But he didn't exactly, give us no bouquet of roses there. But you got to live with what you got to live with, Mr. Finebaum.
Yes, sir.
Well, greetings and salutations on the holiday season, and Merry Christmas to each and every one.
Well, thank you very, very much, Cat Daddy. Great to have you on. Let's continue with more calls. And Dave is in Louisiana. Hello, Dave.
Hey, Paul. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Just to interject something, there was a big deal seemingly made that Heisman was 60 years between Heisman winners. You probably don't remember this. You were kind of a young boy. But Jerry Stovall was a running back at LSU in 1962, and he came out second in the Heisman behind a guy who was really just unknown to everybody, seemed like. But he could have won it very easily. He just didn't win it, unfortunately, and we had that long gap after that.
Jerry Stovall later, wasn't Jerry Stovall the coach at LSU at one time?
Yeah, he was coach from about 80.
Right, he took over when Bo Ryan died. Yeah,
crash.
Jerry was a really nice guy. I got to know him pretty well.
He's still there. He's still very supportive of LSU, and but he was a really great guy. It's too bad he didn't win. He was in the pros for about 10 years. And I want to, just like a lot of folks are telling you, this guy Larry who calls and berates everything, you really tolerate that more than I would. I can assure you that.
Well, you're right, Dave. But I have based this program on tolerance and heavy drug use during the show. Listen. No one get the wrong idea. This is a family show. I have never done anything.
But he does seem like he was off course a little bit. I was telling your guy who screened your
calls.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I think in some ways it's a compliment to the show that some fans feel so comfortable here they can berate the host.
Mm-hmm. Well, no one ever threatened you before, I don't think.
No, but you know what? I'm an adult. I've got a security force that will, not break him in half because that would take a chainsaw. But I feel good. Hey, thank you for the call. By the way, Seth Emerson reporting that DeAndre Swift and Isaiah Wilson are declaring for the NFL draft, joining the previously announced Andrew Thomas. So the hits keep coming for the Dogs. Let's continue with Fred, who is up next. Hey, Fred. Good afternoon to you.
Hi. Good afternoon, Fred Paisley.
Hey, Fred.
I'm an old guy that speaks slowly, so bear with me.
No, listen. I'm not a young guy, but I'm a slightly younger guy who speaks slowly. So bear with me.
Okay. I have several things to talk about, and I have been a hard time getting in. But what I would like to comment on now is something that is very refreshing, and that is the coach at LSU.
Yes.
And what is so refreshing about him, he won by coaching, not by talent. He if you study how the players played, but more than that, he is dedicated to the state of Louisiana. Nick Saban, is dedicated to winning, not to Alabama. He recruits all over everywhere, taking advantage of contact. If you look at the SEC, Florida, Georgia, Texas A&M recruit from their states primarily. Nick Saban recruits to Hawaii and everywhere nationally. He has a contact, just like the other person that I don't like is Urban Meyer, who does the same thing. I can't say it. It's not going on the air, but they have all the parochial schools everywhere, and they have an end to recruit everywhere, and they don't need Alabama, the state. I grew up where Georgia, Florida, we took our rat caps off. There was a whole goal was to beat Georgia. And of course, Steve Spurrier changed all that when he won the Heisman, and we found out we could support football for football. But the point of the matter is, the man got a top staff. You're really carried by your staff. There's a very few ball coaches. Steve Spurrier's one, Fisher is another, and so is the man now. It is at Florida. He made Urban Meyer, because he coached the quarterback that made him a Heisman Trophy winner, and he had to live with him to make him that way, and he is. It's coaching. We've lost sight of the value of this being loyal to a state and loyal to a school. I go back a long ways. I go back to LSU in the Spurrier era. When you went to LSU the night before, enjoyed barbecue with them, you enjoyed the game, and it was exciting, and we're very much with good people.
You know what, Fred? I remember those days too. When I was a student, and then when I started covering games, the fans got together always. That was part of the fun of going on the road. You knew people, you were friends, and now you have to wonder: is it safe?
Yeah, and they're giving her a bad name, but I was delighted. Jacksonville was the greatest outdoor cocktail party.
Right.
And I met my cousins there and was humiliated continually by Georgia. But when Steve Spurrier came, I made it a point to be in Atlanta with some cousins when we played the game, and we didn't see the second half. And that's football is gone to me. But I won't, with all due respect, that some coach like Nate Saban will not exist. It will yield to somebody like Auburn, who plays players from Auburn, and when they win, beat Alabama, it doesn't count because Alabama is the better team. Alabama goes into the playoff system and leaves Auburn at home. I believe you don't vote you play to hear the winners, not to see who is the best team. That's idiotic. And if I had my way, Steve Spurrier, there needs to be a 16-team playoff to give all the conferences a chance. So somebody like UCF gets to play the people they can't beat. Because when you play the game, you play to win. And the one thing you look forward to if you're a little guy, literally, and I go back to 1947 and 48, you see. So I was in another era of playing football, played it 5 days a week, and you didn't ruin your social weekend. We played the game seriously, but you're not dedicated to the game all the time. And that's why I had a son that would be good at football, but I didn't want him to pay the price to pay. But they asked him to dedicate. I wanted to spend weekends with my son, and that's a fact.
Hey, listen, Fred, thank you very much for your call. We were up against a break here, but great to have you on. We are heading to a break right now. We'll still.
I don't think I've ever seen a story like I've seen with Joe Brady, the winner for this year. And, you take an offense, Paul, last year that was ranked 70th in total offense, a quarterback that was ranked probably middle of the pack, 16 touchdowns total last year, 5 interceptions. That same quarterback, those same receivers, that same offensive line went from 70th to the number 1 total offense in America. And so you got to give Coach O credit for hiring Joe Brady and Steve Ensminger for allowing that young man to come in. You're right, at age 30, the youngest to ever win the Broyles Award. But let me tell you what, they would not be achieving what they achieved this year without Joe Brady. And he's so humble, Paul. He was great here in Little Rock. He deflects the credit. But there's no question. I've never seen anything like that, the impact of an assistant coach in 1 year to take an offense that was just an average offense to be the most explosive we've seen in SEC history. There had been a push by a lot of former players about Sam Pittman, and I remember talking on our radio show that, you know what, fine. I'm okay with Pittman because he's a dynamic recruiter. His players love him. A reference to the Broyles Award, one of the great assistant coaches, Paul, for Frank Broyles was Wilson Matthews. And the players just loved him, and they played hard for him. And that's been the MO for Sam Pittman. It was at Arkansas. Players just would run through a brick wall, and he was a dynamic recruiter at Georgia. So I remember early on when somebody brought up his name, I was like, fine. If you look at where this program went down the tubes, it's when he left Brett Bielema after that 8-5 season, and the offensive line has never been the same. So I'm fine with it. This is a guy who wanted the job, Paul, and I think if Razorback fans have embraced him, it may not have been number 1, but who cares at this point? Let's get tough. Let's get tougher, a tougher football team, and let's get some better talent in. Well, that's a good question. I have no clue. I don't think anybody knows for sure. But if you think about it, Paul, the Chad Morris hire, he was a head coach at SMU. What did that turn out? Didn't give you any indicator. So I don't know. All I know is after 2 consecutive 2-10 seasons, I'm ready to see some winning. I think a lot of people are. So we're hoping the best for Sam Pittman that he's hit the ground running. At this point, I don't really care if people don't like the hire. This is who the guy is, and I think this Razorback fan base appreciates the fact that, as you said, a lot of the coaches may have passed on it, not Sam Pittman. He wanted the job just like Ed Orgeron wanted the LSU job, and we'll see what happens.
We welcome you back. Glad you're here. Don't forget tomorrow, National Signing Day. Alabama is still holding on at the number 1 position, expected to get the number 1 quarterback in the country out of California. That would be a nice alternative to their current situation. Let's go to I-Man next. Hey, I-Man.
Hey, good afternoon, Paul. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you.
We've been hearing a whole lot about recruiting the last couple of days, and you always hear this term. It's about the Jimmies and the Joes.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that well, it is about the Jimmies and the Joes, but guess what? Their name is Burrow. It's all about the Burrows. It's not about the Sabans and the Tiders and the Crimsons and the 5 Stars and the Blue Chips. It's about Jimmy and Joe Burrow. Paul, it has been very interesting the way the Bama fans have not responded well to this ass-whipping season. It's just not been good. They're used to giving it out, but they just don't take it very well. And are we going to have a history lesson all summer long back to next spring? Is it going to be about what they used to do and what they could have done and if they could have done this? And are we going to play that all year long? Because if so, it's going to be damn entertaining. It's going to be the best radio there ever is. If War Damn Eagle. Have a great.
That's a great call. Jim is up next in Virginia. Hello, Jim. Nice of you to call.
Paul, thank you so much for taking my call. Enjoy your show.
Thank you.
I just wanted to comment on your earlier caller, Fred. Sounds like a fine gentleman, but, to me, and I think probably to a lot of people, it's not only about state allegiance, because very few states can support a talent or have a talent pool that can field a team. And the best example of that is Spurrier himself, who may have been born in Miami, but he was raised in Tennessee, and he was a product of the Tennessee football system and came back to Florida that way. So that wears a little thin with me, because I think one of the things that makes football great is the diversity of talent that comes from all over the country, whether it's Tua from Alabama, another ball player from another region. That's what makes college football what it is.
Well, you're right about that. It's a great point. Really good point.
Well, I enjoy your show. Thank you so much, and all the best to you for a Merry Christmas.
Jim, Merry Christmas. Thanks for calling, and thanks for the kind words. Johnny is in West Virginia. Hey, Johnny.
Hey, Paul. How you doing today?
We're doing great.
Hey, I got a couple comments and a question for you about Larry the Clown. Number one, he really gives drinking a bad name. And that could be a country western song.
Sounds like it.
And
Merle
another
Haggard.
comment.
Drinking.
You give drinking a
Bad name.
And another comment I want to make, I don't think Larry has seen the football since the kickoff. But do you know, this is my question for you, do you know who Larry's drinking buddies are?
I don't think Larry has any drinking buddies.
Yeah, he has two, Paul. It's Mo and Larry.
Mo and Larry.
Yeah.
You sure?
And
You sure it's
Curly.
Mo and Larry? Yeah, because it seems like it'd be Mo and Curly.
Hey, Paul, I love your show. I look forward to 3 o'clock every day. I love your show. I think you got the best show on TV, and keep up a good work.
Hey, thank you very much. Great to have you on. That's funny. Doug is in South Carolina. Hello, Doug.
Hey, Paul, how are you today?
We're doing great.
Well, I was going to talk about something else, but I saw the segment with a guy from South Carolina, and I'm going to tell you what, I got two things I want to say to you. One, I don't care if it's football or whatever it is. If you do what you always do, you're going to get what you always get.
I like that.
And it takes a narrow mind to think that you can recruit against teams that are recruiting number 1, 2, 3, 4 in the nation, while you're recruiting number 19. And for the past 5 years, you've seen the results. And it's a really narrow-minded person that thinks miraculously those results are going to change if you don't do nothing.
Well, listen, I've heard, and I'm not picking on Will Muschamp, but I've heard the same excuses for him over and over again. And like you said, and a number 18 recruiting class tomorrow is not going to get it done. He's got to break through. He's got to do what Jimbo Fisher did his first year, what he may do tomorrow.
And
otherwise,
look, he's playing against us every year.
Yeah.
And we're his biggest rival. And we're recruiting like number 1 or 2 now in the nation every year, and they're going to recruit 18th. That's just not going to get it done. And I mean, and not only that, LSU, Alabama, Auburn, Florida, and Georgia all are recruiting at the same precedented level we are, as well as Ohio State.
You know what concerns me, though, Doug, and not me or you, because, I'm not a South Carolina fan, but it just seems like a malaise has set in. And, yeah, we win 7 games, 8 games. I mean, I mean, you went through that at Clemson, and finally folks had enough.
Well, Paul, we set out some games. They had Bowden there, and it's not good for a fan base to not support at school, but they have.
No, sometimes you just have to take a good long look at what the issues are, and sometimes they're